Halloween Kills is going to be streaming on Peacock on the same day as theaters. Let's talk about it. All right, so what made Universal decide to release Halloween Kills on Peacock the same day as theaters? And I say Universal because this is not a Blumhouse or a Jason Blum decision at all, right? Blumhouse is the production company, so they get the movie put together, right? They secure the budget from Universal. They do all the casting, they do all the filming, all the editing, and everything that goes along with the production. But when it comes to the money side of it, that's Universal. Universal's making the decision as to when a trailer gets cut or how it gets cut, when that trailer is released, when the movie's going to go into theaters, what streaming service it goes to, or if it gets sold to, however they work out that deal. That's all Universal, even down to the DVD release and steelbooks and that type of thing. That's all Universal side. So I've seen a lot of people recently saying, Blumhouse messed this up. And no, this isn't a Blumhouse decision at all. This is definitely a Universal decision. So, a lot of people are asking, well, why did they make that call? Why did Universal make that call? And is it the reviews? Because there's been a lot of reviews coming out of Venice. And I don't think it has anything to do with the reviews whatsoever, because those reviews are coming from the likes of Variety Magazine, Entertainment Weekly, and some of those media outlets that aren't necessarily interested in the Halloween franchise, right? They were there for the big film festival, and they were seeing Halloween in the scope of all of these other movies. And then that's when you end up with these reviews saying, well, typical 1980s type of, horror bloodbath and a lot of murder, not enough Jamie Lee Curtis, more Michael Myers. You know what I mean? All the bad reviews come out that way because these people aren't necessarily interested in the franchise itself the way a hardcore Halloween fan like you or I might be. So I'm not saying their opinions on the movie aren't valid, but they're watching it in the scope of a bunch of other films that aren't necessarily horror or horror related, right? So they're seeing it through a completely different scope. I think the bigger part of that decision is that theaters just aren't doing well currently. They were hoping a year from last year that, theaters would be, a little more packed. Hopefully COVID would be a little more under control. And that's just not the case. While things are looking a little better than last year, it's just not the case. So I think Universal kind of made this decision to release it onto their own streaming service for the sake of trying to make up some of those opening weekend sales with getting more subscriptions into their service. And I'm hearing a lot of talk from other channels and different outlets saying that, they could have sold it to Netflix, or they were in talks with Netflix, and they could have went to Hulu. And sure, they've got bigger audiences there at Netflix, right? Netflix got somewhere around 300 million subscribers, where Peacock is somewhere around 50 million. They're a relatively new service. So it was only the right decision for them to go to Peacock, because why would they go anywhere else, right? You want to up your numbers on your own service. Universal owns Peacock, for those that don't know. So it was the logical decision. It wouldn't have made sense to really go to Netflix. I mean, they would have gotten probably a better deal, more money out of Netflix, but they also want to up the numbers on their own subscription service. And what better way to do it than with an anticipated movie like Halloween Kills? And with the current state of the world right now with COVID, maybe this was the right choice. And the reason I say that is when you look at Candyman's box office, they did about 25 million domestically on opening weekend, and they didn't do HBO Max or any of the streaming services. They were theaters only, and they made about 25 million. Don't Breathe 2 did about 26 million. Free Guy, I believe, was 28 million. So, there's a trend here for movies during this, pandemic era, is most movies are going to make around 25 to 30 million roughly in theaters alone, and then, whatever they do with streaming. So with Halloween Kills having a budget of only, I think, $15 million, I mean, if they make 25 million in the box office, 30 million in the box office, they're already profitable outside of opening weekend. You know what I mean? That's not looking at the rest of the month in theaters, or not looking at the streaming numbers and anything like that. All they have to do is top 15 million opening weekend and they are profitable, right? So I feel like the streaming, I feel like going to streaming was the right idea. I know a lot of people don't agree with that. They're saying it's going to hurt their numbers, and of course it will. It's going to hurt the theater numbers for sure. But you got to realize too that there's more to it than the hardcore Halloween fan base, right? Because people like you and I are going to go see it in the theaters for sure. Some of us will probably even go see it 2 or 3 times in the theaters. I'm one of those people. But they're not really aiming for us. They're not aiming for the hardcore Halloween fan base. Sure, they want us to see the movie, but they're counting on that, where we're guaranteed sales already. They're trying to reach a new fan base as well. They're trying to attract new customers to see this movie. And the likelihood of getting them to the theaters is slim. So the best way to probably do that is to charge them the $4.99 on Peacock and get them to subscribe. You know, a lot of people are saying, well, didn't Blumhouse and Universal say that they were going to move it back a whole year just to avoid having to go to streaming? And yeah, they did say that, but I think at that time they were really counting on things calming down as far as the pandemic. They were hoping for more people being vaccinated, less spikes in different variants and things like that from COVID. And things haven't necessarily settled down, at least not everywhere. Some states have got it under control, but for example, I live in Florida, and we're doing worse now than we were last year at this time. So, you know, I think they had to really consider that when they decided to go to streaming as well. I know they wanted to avoid it. That was the entire purpose of waiting a year, was to avoid that. But at this point, it's unavoidable, because the only other option is to push it back again. And then we end up with a Halloween movie in June or July. And I don't think anybody wants that. We really want this movie around October, right? That's the prime time to see this movie. So I think they really had to base their decision on the numbers right now, and had no choice. And I kind of agree with it, because, you know, there's a lot of people who aren't comfortable yet going to the theaters, and now they can actually see this movie, right? They're not forced to wait for the Blu-ray. They can go watch it at home now. You know, I just think it's the right decision. You know, and another thing is, there are a lot of people saying that because of Halloween Kills going to streaming, they're going to lose a lot of money, and that's going to lower the odds of getting Halloween Ends in 2022. I'm seeing a lot of channels, a lot of comments, and people saying that we're going to lose Halloween Ends, and we're not going to get an ending to this trilogy. I don't see that happening, and I'll tell you why. For one, when you look at Halloween 2018, right, it had a budget of about the same, somewhere between $10 and $15 million on their budget for Halloween 2018. And it made $250 million worldwide. That wasn't expected at all, right? They actually they overperformed, greatly overperformed on Halloween 2018, right? So that they have way more money still left from that to make Halloween Kills, and left over from that. Halloween Ends, $15 million budget. All they have to do is pass $15 million in the theaters. If they make $25 million opening weekend, they're profitable, right? So that doesn't hurt Halloween Ends. All they have to do is be profitable in the previous 2 films, and they will be. There's no way Halloween Ends doesn't make $25 million in the theaters. You know, films that weren't expected to do well in theaters did pretty well, all things considered, with COVID and all. So I don't think Halloween Ends is threatened at all by the move to Peacock. The worst that could happen is maybe they cut their budget at worst. You know, they have to cut a few people out of the production that may not be necessary. You know, maybe a few camera operators or gaffers, or, you know what I mean? A couple of things like that. Maybe they have to cut back on a location or two and rework that into their script because they now don't have the budget for a certain location. That type of thing could happen, but again, that's slim because again, with the money made from Halloween 2018 and with Halloween Kills being hopefully being profitable at just over $20 million, there's no chance that Halloween Ends gets threatened. So I don't think we're in any danger of that not being made. So that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are you happy about the move to Peacock? Will you be watching it in theaters or will you watch it on streaming? Will you do both? I know for me, I'm excited about the fact that I can go watch it in the theaters on the 14th, right? Because they always release the movies a day early in certain markets. I'm in Orlando, so it's a pretty big market for early releases. I saw Candyman the night before it came out, and they're doing the same here for Halloween Kills. I know that for a fact. So I'll get to see it on the 14th in theaters, and then on the 15th I'll get to watch it again at home, and as much as I want after that. So I'm excited about that. Is that something you guys are going to be doing, or are you just going to stick to streaming? How do you feel it's going to hurt the numbers? Do you think this will affect Halloween Ends? Let me know in the comments, guys, and then I'll see you guys in my next video.